Hello everybody, I'm Filip Manilov, and in this video I will show you how to make a physical model. So I'll be making a physical model on a scale of 1 to 20. This will be a facade of the building in Edinburgh. This is a stone building and I hope to make it out of plaster. I'm just to let you know that I'm not an expert in model making, so I'll be showing you my process from step to step, and I might be making mistakes along the way and it might not be the perfect example of the model, but I just want to showcase the process and how it is made. Nevertheless, I will still put my best effort into this model making, and that's the building that I'm going to be making. This is a building in Edinburgh. It's a facade of the Inn on the Mill. It's a 1923 build. It was originally a British linen bank, but now it's been converted into a hotel, and I thought this is an interesting and exciting example of the classical architecture of the Greek revival style that is being portrayed in this building. And in order to approach this, I will be actually tracing the facade picture that I already have. I've taken that in Edinburgh, and I will trace it in CAD, then transfer it and make it into a SketchUp model, so make it into 3D, and then I'll probably break it down into 3 different parts and assemble it all together. That will allow me to determine the thickness of the walls and how exactly that's gonna happen. I don't exactly know, but I will show you the process, so stay tuned. Now you've seen I've modeled the facade, so now it's time to break down the elements. I'll start with the columns. I'll produce a negative of the column, and then I will 3D print the parts, hoping to cast it into a plaster later on, and then I can reuse this mold and make some more columns. I also figured out how to turn on the lamp at the background, so now I can do this. I'm using Bamboo Labs 3D printer 6% gyroid infill. As of this moment, I'm standing outside trying to take some pictures from the column cast that I made. Well, not the cast, the negative model. And the bottom parts, for some reason, are not coming together. I really don't understand where I screwed up, but definitely screwed up somewhere. But the top part is coming together very nicely, as you can see over here. And then this will just be sticking together like that. Well, I'll be unscrewing the 3D parts at the bottom by sending it to the new printer and printing it again, the correct parts this time, in order for them to connect properly. I will also be trying to cast the first part of the column, or the actual base, and we need to saw cut the wood planks that will be connecting the bottom base, so that will be the overall draft shape in which the rest of the mold will be holding for the ground floors. And also, I actually just realized as well that because these come out sideways, I might need to remove the teeth, the connections, because they actually should be coming not just sideways, but they should be coming off diagonally from the column, like that, and might need to be taking them off after that. I also have this part which will be the base of the column, and I will be sticking it all together, and then it should come in as a nice easy piece. I'm gonna try to be very clear now and show you how I'm doing the casting process. So these are the forms that I'll be casting, the base and the column, which is split into two parts now, and then I can close it like that and quickly tape it. But I split it in half so that I can stir it a little bit throughout the process. Right, so I'll begin by adding some water. So I've got some water into this bucket right here. This is cold water, I think about 500 milliliters, maybe even more. So I've added 2 of these, so I guess here's about 1 liter of water. And now I'm just going to be adding plaster, which is right here. Kind of shaking it through the way. When it starts forming an island, that's about when it's ready. Maybe a bit more. Ideally we want like thick cream type of texture. Almost like sour cream. And I might be adding a bit more later. So now we're just gonna let it soak for a minute. So about a minute has passed, and now we can start mixing it with our hand. I put a glove on, honestly, but you don't really need gloves because plaster is not very toxic for your hands, so you can just mix it with your hands. I'm just handling a camera, so I don't really want to get it dirty. And I might need to add some extra plaster because it is quite liquid at this point. I'm trying not to make too many bubbles. I got a nice consistency over here. You could see it's quite thick. It's quite nice. Now I'm gonna be pouring it into the mold over here. Alright, I poured it in. I'm just gonna go in with a stirrer, try to get rid of the bubbles and get plaster everywhere in the mold, like so. Ideally you can do it with your hand, but since this is a very tight space over here, can't really do that. I'm pouring a bit extra here. As you can see, it got a bit of a top, just in case some of it comes out from the sides or from the bottom or anywhere. And then later I'm gonna just take the top off, and it's gonna create a nice smooth surface. Okay, I got the second mold over here. Just gonna pour a bit, and now, as I was saying, just get over the corners and all the surfaces, just like that. It breaks down the surface tension, and it doesn't matter if the mold gets messy, because after that we'll get it clean. Okay, so just pretty much getting it everywhere, like that. Okay, a little bit of a tap, and I can pour the rest. Yeah, a little bit extra. Anyway, so I tap. Gets rid of the bubbles, and then I can just pour from a bigger bucket. Okay, And you see, again, it's got a bit extra on the top. Now I can wait for around 5, maybe around up to 10 minutes. I see the plaster is getting dry and we can get our amazing tool, a metal ruler, to get the top off and make it nice and even. Okay, I'm gonna try to demonstrate it on this one. All you need to do, gently come off like that, and there you go. I mean, you get the idea. And this bit is nice and straight, and I will fix this in a second. Just like that, nice and fixed. And I've done the exact same thing with this cast over here to make it nice and straight. This was the casting process, quick and simple. If you're liking the video so far, definitely subscribe to the channel and leave your like.
Of course it's just left there. If it does get knocked over, it's going to be dangerous.
Could look better.
I might knock it over.
Yeah, honestly. Don't mind what it's in the
So I cast the column, but again, as I explained earlier, you can't really take it apart, so I will have this middle junction here, and I can only take it apart sideways. It's been about maybe 20 minutes, maybe a bit more, so hopefully it hasn't solidified quite yet, but probably I might need to take and cut off the connection bits. But yeah, let's crack it open.
memory might be full before the cask is out.
Ah!
Oh.
Okay. There we have it. Right, as you see here, that is how the column turned out, and honestly, I think it turned out really well, considering that the cast was, the form was actually harder to take apart, and I had to take apart in two pieces, as you've seen. But I mean, it's wonderful that it held together as a one piece, and look at the amount of detail that still persisted. So even though some parts broke down, it's still pretty good. So I mean, I'm really happy with this cast. So now what I had to do, I had to take off these little parts, the connectors, because they were actually impacting the way the cast has been taken apart. So I took them off, and now I'm gonna cast them in a new way and see how that turns out. So I just opened the second casting column, and during the process it kind of broke down, and even these corners, they got stuck in the mold. So I'll probably try sticking them together, and I got recommended to use this kind of two-part epoxy resin. We'll see how that works. And I mean, this one, I left it overnight. It kind of set a bit more, it became a bit more brittle. So what I'm gonna try to do again is to cast it and then take it out maybe after 20 minutes or so, while it's didn't set yet. And now I'll be making a model of the casting box that I would use to cast the base of the building, and you see I'm using the negative of the 3D model that I produced, and I'm gonna populate it with the pieces of planks for the major support, and then I will put smaller pieces of foam board inside to see how I'm actually compiling it and making it with the materials that I will have. This was an essential step for me to understand how I will be making the model, because sometimes if you don't plan this kind of decisions ahead, it will be difficult to just be running around searching for the right sizes of materials. And for example, some of them I optimized to be round it to the nearest 5 millimeters or the nearest 10 millimeters and so on, so I can make it with the materials I have available. As soon as this was complete, it was time to return to the workshop. I'm gonna do a test cut on the foam board right now, just to see how the laser cutter is making the cut and see how thin the strips can be made. Right, as you've seen, it didn't quite work as I expected, but because of the nature of the laser, the cut is is going inside. So if this gets closer, yeah, as you see, it melts it, and the thin strips, they're not working at all, so that's okay. I'll have to be cutting them by hand, and they'll make them probably even better because they will not have this indent of the laser. Never mind, change of plans. I actually tried cutting them out with the laser out of the perspex, and you see the thin strips turned out very crisp and nice. For future reference, if you're gonna do it out of perspex, don't remove the protective film or you'll have to add masking tape like I did. And it is also time to cut the majority of the foam board pieces with a laser cutter. And yes, I know that I don't really like the cut that the laser cutter produces on the foam board, but on the larger pieces like this, it doesn't really matter. And also, just as a precaution, I wouldn't recommend you to look at the laser while it's working. Now Richard is helping me cut the planks for the box of the casting. And shout out to all the staff at the Newcastle University workshop, by the way. Thank you guys. Right, I'm making the box for the ground floor. And I'm drilling some holes to put the screws in. And this is the process. So I'm drilling the thinner hole, that's about the width of the shaft of the screw. And then I'm making the top connection a bit wider, like so. And then I have my army of drills right here. And then also making the top part slightly angled to account for the top of the screw. Right, got the chamfered corners in place. However, the bottom ones, at the top they're fine. At the bottom, something's gone wrong. I'll have to sculpt it, I guess. And then add more tape later on. This goes inside the box. Just laid out everything for the assembly in the box. These bits go on top, like so. Hopefully the plaster will get underneath. Right, so at the moment I've been cutting a bunch of foam board with a saw. So I got these pieces, and these are essentially structural pieces that would go inside the mold, and like I've done a smaller piece here, they go into these gaps, so the foam board would not collapse inwards in these indents when I'm gonna pour the plaster, and that's gonna work in theory. And I'm not doing it just with foam board because from what I know it will create a funny texture when the foam is gonna come off the plaster. Yeah, I'm gonna do a test sample to see how that works. And this is one of the samples I made with just foam that looks like this. So it's got a foam in between paper, and one side was tape. You see it got a bit of a glossy texture. Maybe I'm gonna sand it down later on. So that was this kind of sample, but it did not imprint the color. That's good. As of now, I currently finished working on the first base mold. Finally, I've been working it for about a week, even more actually, and right now I've just finished making it. So I'm gonna measure the volume and put some wires for reinforcement of the top part, and I'm gonna cast it now, so hopefully all goes well. Just finished pouring the cast. It's just starting to set, and we'll probably leave it for a day, maybe a bit longer, and start taking it out. Back in the workshop now, so the front and the side was very easy to take off, and also the strips of the perspex worked very well. And getting the foam board from the back, I'm using a hot wire and then I'm chiseling the rest, which is quite tricky. That's the first look at the cast, and with time it will become whiter as the water dries out from the plaster. The cast is taken out, and in fact it turned out to be quite nice, actually crisper than I expected, and yeah, definitely really good. I will be filming it in more detail later on, and there's a couple of corners to clean up, but overall it's really crisp. Now on to making the next cast of the first and second floors. Essentially the process is the same. I'm making a wooden box where I'm gonna put the contents. Just finished making the second box model. It is pretty much the same as the one I was doing before, with a couple of simplifications, so it took me way less time, and I also implemented a couple of tricks that I learned while making the first one. So here it is. There we have it. It is two-story box. It's gonna go on top of the first mold. Yeah, so you see, literally just glue the rest. Okay, a bit of an update on the cast right here. I didn't put enough plaster. I don't know where the mistake was, honestly. I tried to calculate it with ChatGPT. I measured the right volume. Maybe I made a mistake there. God knows. I double-checked the measurements, said the correct volume, but somewhere nonetheless it's still missing. Like, look at that. I don't know, like 20 mil off. Damn it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna drill some holes and pour the next cast so that the holes help to grip with the existing cast, and hope it works. So I'm taking apart the second mold. I poured the rest. I think it's coming through just nice, and I was showing a good method of removing the foam from within. So this is it. Instead of using a hot wire, now I can use a drill and just drill it like so, and then make as many holes, and I can chisel the rest out. Okay, right now what I'm gonna do, I weighted my model, and it's about, well, the top part, the one I just casted, is about 19.25 kg, and I'm gonna do a test. I'll put some weights on top of my existing base and see if it can hold up, and hopefully it's not gonna break. I got about 19 kilogram weight here. Let's test it. What I'm seeing here, the weights seem to hold, and I will try placing the top of the structure now. I've added the rest of the columns now, and the only thing remaining is the roof. Now going back to the same process of creating a mold out of wooden planks and then filling it up with the foam board. Some of the foam pieces had very acute angles which would have been very difficult to cut with a saw and also not safe. So I used the belt sander and it worked very well. I finally finished making the mold for the roof, so it's time to cast it at last. I got the mold here, everything is nice and secure. Right everyone, the moment has come. I pinned up everything, I put my model together. This is it, the final plaster cast. You can see it all together and I'm really happy how it turned out. I think it looks absolutely stunning, and here's my wall. We only just got one piece, but it's still, I think, looking really fresh, and I might show my project in a second. This is it. I think there's a bit of my project, but the main thing is the model finally put together. It's about 1 meter in height and pretty exciting. And of course, there's a bit more of a close-up to the project. Thanks for watching everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will definitely be seeing you in the next one. This was a very challenging process, but I got through it, and if you stay persistent with your models and anything you do, you will definitely also succeed. And it's definitely about finishing it up and making sure you get to the final point. That is the idea. I think I'm quite happy with the result. It did take way too long. Like, I kind of estimated, I guess, a bit less, but it's worth it, and I'm glad it is complete. And I hope you enjoyed the video, hope you enjoyed the process, and see if you got any questions you can ask me. I can drop your some answers in the comments regarding the process if you want to do something similar in plaster model. Anyways, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.